Hi everyone, we're going to be looking at an amazing trap that we can play against the English opening. But before we do, please don't forget to like and subscribe. The subscribe button is right underneath this video. Also, don't forget to let me know what you think about this trap in the comments. Okay, let's get started. So, this trap was played in a game between Novotny and Kalendovsky in Brno, Czechoslovakia in 1973. So about 20 years before the peaceful breakup of that country into Czech Republic and Slovakia. White played c4, which is the English opening, a flank opening, and the fourth most popular way of opening up a game, after e4, d4, and knight f3. For black, the most popular reply is knight f6, which transposes to the Indian defense, and e5, which is the reverse Sicilian. Also popular is c5, which is the symmetrical defense, which is a flexible way of playing. Black played e5, the reverse Sicilian. Essentially, it's as if white is playing the Sicilian defense, but with an extra tempo, because white got the first move, of course. Knight c3, white's knight continues the fight for the center, and especially over the e4 square, because it helps white develop his other knight without being kicked back by the e-pawn. Now, black has to decide which knight to develop. Knight f6 is flexible. Knight c6 is flexible as well, but can also be a sharp way of playing. Black plays knight c6. And white decides to develop his other knight with knight f3. Here, black played bishop c5, breaking the general principle that we want to develop the knights before the bishops. But this is perfectly playable here. The more popular response would have been knight f6, and this is the 4 knights variation. You're usually going to get a positional game from this, but not always. There are certain sharp lines that can come up from time to time. Let's go back to bishop c5, the move that was actually played. So bishop c5 does target the sensitive f2 pawn. It was in this position that the fireworks began, with white playing knight takes e5. You might be thinking, what the heck is white doing giving up his knight, since we can just take that knight with knight takes e5? Actually, black did not take that knight, and let's look at why and what idea white has. So, if knight takes e5, this simply leaves white with at least a slight advantage after d4, forking the knight and bishop. Play might continue bishop d6, c5, bishop e7, d takes e5, knight takes c5. White will be able to defend his e5 pawn with bishop f4, and that pawn is going to make our development a little awkward. White definitely has a slight edge here. Let's go back and see what black actually played. So there is a much better move for black to play here than knight takes e5. There is the very nice move bishop takes f2, and this was what was played in the actual game, and this is likely to come as a surprise to your opponents. The idea here is simple. We can have a game where the material is equal, but where white loses the right to castle. And with the queens remaining on the board, that will be quite the disadvantage for white. This English line is worth knowing just for this move alone, but there's more to it. Here, white's only move is king takes f2, and only now do we take the knight with knight takes e5. In this position, we can see that our knight is attacking c4 pawn, and white has to do something about that. White defends the c4 pawn and opens up diagonals for his queen and light squared bishop with the move e4. And here, the best move for black is going to be queen f6, check. If black plays king e1, king e2, king e3, or king g3, we are going to simply continue to exploit the fact that the white king cannot castle by bringing more pieces into the action with moves like d6, knight e7, or maybe even knight h6. However, if white plays king g1, which was played in the actual game, we have a brilliant way of winning the game. So king g1. Can you find black's move here? Black played the move knight g4. Black is threatening queen f2 checkmate. But wait a minute, doesn't that just hang the knight? No, white did play queen takes g4, and I'm sure you can see what black's reply was. Black played queen d4 checkmate. None of white's pieces can block our queen, and the white king has nowhere to go. A beautiful checkmate on move 8. But what happens if white does not capture our knight? Let's have a look. So white can play queen f3, stopping any checkmate ideas on f2, and black would play queen d4 in this position as well. Black has two ways of stopping the check. Queen f2 leads to queen takes f2 checkmate, and queen e3 leads to knight takes e3, d takes e3, queen e5. And black will cruise to victory after having taken white's queen. So I hope you've enjoyed this game. Once again, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment.